now that this injury happened, is Marcus Stroman a potential guy the Mets should go after?
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm Stacey Gasulias, and right next to me, my co-host Brian McKeon. Brian, happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, halfway through the week already.
Crazy. Before we get started, don't forget, subscribe to Locked On Yankees on whichever podcasting platform you prefer. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, like our videos, hit the bell so you're notified when our videos go live. On today's show, Anthony Rizzo still wants to play, but no one seems to want him. We're going to talk about that. Two arms are putting on a show so far in Yankees camp. We'll tell you who they are. But first, the Mets are having some issues with their starting rotation. They have two big injuries already that are going to affect the start of the season. Could there possibly be a deal between the Yankees and the Mets where the Mets would take an extra pitcher off the Yankees' hands?
Yeah, so it's been made pretty public at this point that David Stearns, the Mets GM and president of baseball ops, his strategy is to basically have pitchers that have high upside on low thought of what they're going to do this year for shorter term deals. He doesn't like giving pitchers long-term deals under high contracts because guys tend to get hurt. And he's looking right at this point in the offseason because his ace, quote unquote, from last year that he signed in Sean Manaea is already injured. And he came into camp apparently with the tight oblique. He tried it out for a few days. It didn't get better. And now it looks like he's going to be out till mid-May, which could be a problem for the Mets. A team that already is thin on starting pitching, that could be an issue. Frankie Montas is their next best pitcher, pretty much. Kodai Senga is also on that rotation, and Clay Holmes. It's a lot of question marks in that Mets rotation, and they are now in need of a starting pitcher. And
technically they need two because Montas is injured until May also because he has a lat strain. So there's two. That's the problem with the rotation. You have two guys injured till May. You have Clay Holmes, who's being converted into a starter from a reliever.
And that's a giant question mark, by the way. You can't really call him a star, insert him as a starter yet because you don't know. You honestly, he doesn't have his innings limit built up, nothing. So you have no idea what to expect out of Clay Holmes.
Yep. Yeah.
So I do think this is an interesting take because it's been circulated around New York baseball for a bit in the last week or so. And the last couple days, it's now become a major storyline where now that this injury happened, is Marcus Stroman a potential guy the Mets should go after? And I would say this, you don't see a lot of big Yankee Met moves. You really don't. I don't think it necessarily always has had to do with them being crosstown rivals. I think for a while that might have been a narrative. I think maybe that might have been a George thing where he wasn't going to trade to the Mets because he'd be damned if a guy went to the Mets and became a star. He'll gladly take a Mets player and let him become a star, but he's not going to do the opposite. Now I think for something like this, it actually makes sense for both teams. I think Marcus Stroman is exactly what the Mets are looking for in a pitcher, but B, he fits that team so perfectly for what they need right now. And let's be real. The same reason for why we're going to talk about Anthony Rizzo a little later on is the same reason why the Yankees don't need Marcus Stroman. They don't need him. There's no room for him on the roster. He doesn't fit the plan anymore. And it was a nice signing when they brought Marcus Stroman in. I liked the deal. I'm pretty sure you did too. But there's no room for him on this rotation. And you hesitate in saying that because is there ever too much starting pitching on a team? No. Watch what'll happen. The Yankees will trade Marcus Stroman, and then a pitcher will get hurt a week later, and then you'll need somebody. So you don't know, and but you can't leave a player on your roster making $18 million a year with, by the way, a little piece of the contract that not a lot of people are aware of, likely $18 million for 2 more years. Let's just add that in too. If Marcus Stroman throws for more than 140 innings this year, he will have a player option for the year after. And if there's not a huge market for him, Stacey, he's going to opt into that for $18 million. So likely it's a 2-year deal. And if Marcus Stroman comes into the year and is one of your starters, he's going to throw 140 innings next year. That's not a crazy amount. Marcus Stroman has a good track record of staying healthy. Likely he takes that on. So it's kind of like a 2-year deal. It's basically Marcus Stroman's original deal with the Yankees, that 2-year deal. And it's something the Mets can afford. Clearly, money's not an object to them. It's a position of need, right? It's a guy who, is he going to be an ace? No. But is he going to give you a 5 ERA? Also no. He'll give you a 3.8 to 4.2 ERA, which is exactly what the Mets are looking for. A middle-of-the-rotation guy that's got some upside, and a guy the Yankees don't really need. I think this move actually fits both teams perfectly. I don't think the Yankees are asking for much back other than salary retention, which is what the Mets are exactly willing to do because, again, they don't care about salary. I think this move fits both teams perfectly, and it fits the player perfectly. Marcus Stroman vocally does not want to leave the New York area because family is important to him and his family's in the area. He's familiar with New York. He wants to be in the area. I think it's a perfect move, and he'll be a starter 24/7 with the Mets throughout the entire season. Even when the Mets get healthy, he'll still remain in the rotation. I think it's a no-brainer, Stacey. I really do.
Yeah, I think it would be a good move for both teams. As you said, there's always that risk because something could happen to a Yankee pitcher right after the move is made. But they do have guys that they can possibly rely on, maybe, to fill in from the minors if need be. If someone's out for like a couple weeks with something or even a month with something, you could bring someone up. But as we said at the top, that's 2 main blows to your rotation already.
Mm-hmm.
With a month before the season starts, and both of them aren't coming back until May. One pitcher you can get away with not having for the first month. The Yankees got away with not having Garrett Cole for, what was it, 2.5 months? the first 2.5 months of the season.
Let it be known though, just not to cut you off, but that they got away with it because Luis Gil pitched like Garrett Cole through the first 2 months.
Right.
There's no guarantee that somebody on the Mets don't have that answer. The Mets don't have that guy that's going to be replacing Manaea that's got the ability to come in and pitch like an ace. That guy's not there in that rotation. Like, there are glaring holes. So, but I think both teams are desperate here in a sense. I don't think they're super desperate, but I think both teams kind of need to make this move in their own right.
Yeah, I think the Mets are more desperate than the Yankees are.
I'd agree.
At this point. I mean, for the Yankees, it's just really like, oh, we have this extra pitcher. We're paying him $18 million and we might not have a spot for him, kind of a thing, which isn't the worst thing in the world. It's not great for him, but it's not bad for them because, again, if someone goes down, then okay, insert him in. If you lose that, like I said, you could go to the minors, but I think I would feel better having a reliable veteran stepping in if something happened to someone.
That's the problem. If something happens to somebody, the exact player that you're going to be looking for is Marcus Stroman. That's exactly what you're going to be looking for. A veteran pitcher who's going to give you a 4 ERA and just going to hold down the fort for a little bit. I think I can be perfectly honest with you. If Marcus Stroman was towards the end of his career making $4 million a year, there'd be no motivation to trade him. They'd keep him on the team. They'd make him, he'd get some spot starts here and there. They'd figure something out, or they'd hold on to him until the end of spring training and then trade him once they knew everyone was healthy. Mm-hmm. The fact that Marcus Stroman is pulling in $18 million a year, and this is not a Yankees are cheap conversation, luxury tax, none of that. $18 million is a significant amount of money. It is in baseball terms, especially for a guy that's not going to make your rotation. So I think that is more of the motivation for the Yankees to make this move is you want to get that $18 million off the books before the season starts. Remember, the luxury tax number is going to count towards the Cohen tax once opening day hits. So they have until then to get rid of Marcus Stroman's contract. And I will say this, if the motivation isn't necessarily to trade Marcus, isn't necessarily to get rid of the finances of Marcus Stroman or save the finances, whatever you want to call it, Nolan Arenado makes $26 million this year. If you get rid of Marcus Stroman, that's like having Nolan Arenado for an extra $8 million. And I think that makes the Yankees a little more comfortable with it too, because like I said, Stacey, there's 3 years left on Nolan's deal at $26 million a year. I think it's key to note that a lot of people haven't realized. A lot of people have been saying that Stroman's got a year left at $18 million, which is technically true. But that extra player option kicker for 140 innings, if Marcus Stroman is a starter going into the year, he's going to pitch 140 innings. He has a great track record of health. He doesn't overdo it with velocity. He's likely going to pitch 140 innings. He just is. So that's not a good sign for the Yankees because that really means it's a 2-year deal for $36 million. And then you're going into the same mess next offseason, Marcus Stroman. So I think there's motivations on both sides to do it. And I don't think necessarily just because the Mets are this crosstown team are more aware of it. No, I think this trade actually very much makes sense for both sides.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. There's time to do it. And again, they're a little more desperate than the Yankees are, but it's a possibility. Anything can happen. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button on our videos, hit the notification so you know when our videos go up. You can also join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club. The link is in the description. You'll get text from us. You can text us questions, comments, reactions to trades and signings. We send out lineups during the season, roster moves, and breaking news so you don't have to check social media. There's a 14-day free trial. Coming up, 2 potential bullpen arms have been impressive so far in camp. We will tell you who they are next.
Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Check into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep you feeling fuller for longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk or on a road trip, or I just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And thanks again for making Locked On Yankees your first listen. Remember that every Friday is Fan Mail Friday. You can leave questions underneath the pinned comment on our videos Monday through Thursday, or you can join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club to get top priority during Fan Mail Friday. The link is in our description. So, Stacey, like we discussed in the first segment, injuries and need to fill spots creates open spots for guys that are potentially impressing and can fill in. And the Yankees, thankfully, have had guys that have filled in now. Scott Efros left earlier yesterday's spring training game. The first pitch that he threw grabbed the back of his leg, looks like a hamstring. Early reports out of spring training are not promising, especially when it's one pitch and he immediately grabs the hamstring. So that's not a good start to his spring. Also, Chase Hampton, hurt, promising going into the season, but he's also hurt, and it doesn't look like he's going to make opening day as well. We've mentioned this before, but it's worth noting before we get really into the segment. Spring training injuries are significantly more damaging to pitchers than anybody else, because when they get hurt early on in spring training, the reason why spring training is so long is because pitchers are all working on a program. They're all starting at a certain point and going through this program. Hitters don't nearly need the amount of time that pitchers need. And as Stacey's explained many times on the show, when a pitcher gets hurt early on in spring training, it delays you way longer than you would think that normal injury would delay you, because you have to restart your whole offseason program once you're back. So I don't think you're going to see Hampton, or basically a guy gets hurt in spring training, assume he's out for most of the first month.
Hampton might not even be back for next spring training. He had Tommy John surgery.
Oh, great. So he's done for the entire year.
Yeah.
That leaves room for 2 guys that have impressed a lot. Sean Boyle, who has looked really good so far, and Cam Schlittler. Now, I will admit this to you guys.
Schlitter.
I know. No, it's Schlittler. It is.
Schlittler?
It is. It was said on the radio. There was a big segment this morning about it, so I'm very well aware. It is spelt Schlittler. It is pronounced Schlittler. Yes, I am not speaking out of turn. Now, if you are an analytics freak and you're not into the big in-between sciencey stats of baseball, I don't know if you're going to agree with the Yankees on this, but both of these guys have had outstanding whiff rates on 2 particular pitches coming into spring training so far. So just before we get into the pronunciation, because that's absolutely becoming a topic in this segment now.
Well, I just wanted to be sure, because
No. Cam Schlittler is the pronunciation from everything that I heard this morning on the radio, and I got to go with their sources because they're going to get as credited as possible. But Sean Boyle was a 25th round pick for the Yankees. He has struggled at high levels of the minor leagues, but has impressed at low levels of the minor leagues. Now he has a new changeup coming into the year this year. And apparently that changeup so far, through 12 batters, 3 innings, not a huge sample size. He's only given up 4 hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, but it has an 83.8% whiff rate, which is psychotic to have that high of a whiff rate on pitches. Again, not a huge sample size yet, But supposedly everything coming out of Yankee camp is they absolutely love what they're seeing out of Sean Boyle and his stuff. Now, Stacey, the guy who they are apparently head over heels in love with, is Cam Schlittler. They love what they have seen out of him so far. He has only faced 8 batters, 1 walk and 2 strikeouts, but his slider apparently has one of the highest spin rates of any slider they've seen before. The whiff rate on the slider is 66.7%, but get this, they're measuring a lot of hitters now by barrel rate. So not even if you hit the bat, but hitting the ball on the barrel of the bat. Not a single player who has made contact with the slider has hit it on the barrel of that. That is extremely impressive. Now, he's young, has only been to Double-A for an inning and a third and got rocked. So I don't know. They don't know if he's going to make the major league roster out of camp, but they are already talking that he might make the Triple-A roster out of camp, which is an insane jump to go from never hitting Double-A or hitting Double-A for an inning in your career to starting the year in Triple-A already. They're saying that he could be on the major leagues at this point coming into this year. Stacey, first of all, do you take a lot of credence or a lot of credit in guys having insane analytical numbers so far when it comes to spring training? Do you think this is a worthy thing to freak out about and think this is, the Yankees have these 2 elite arms coming out of the bullpen? Or do you want to see it at the major league level before you believe it?
I think the latter.
Yeah.
Spring training is so deceiving for everyone, not just, minor league players, but also for major league players. Like, you see some guys totally tearing it up in spring training. I think there was one year Kyle Higashioka had an insane spring training and everyone was like, oh, wow. And then,
Greg Bird every year hit like 600 in spring training.
Yeah. And then he get injured because that's what always happened with Greg Bird. I mean, is it good to see these numbers? Sure. Is it an extremely small sample size? Yes. But if the Yankees are excited by how their pitches look, then okay, that's cool. Let's just see it happen over a longer period of time against batters who are going to be hitting.
I think they measure these things in-house a little more about what the spin rate looks like, what the pitch frame looks like, all those like nerdy numbers. I don't think ERA and basic stats like that are huge things that they're concerned with. And that might sound crazy to an old head baseball fan listening to this show, and I'm sorry if it does, but that's what they look at. They look at whiff rate, they look at pitch frame and pitch angle. They look at all those kind of things that we really aren't even privy to be honest with you, because no one's reading those numbers out every day. So if they love what they're seeing and they're publicly saying it, great. If we're pronouncing Cam Schlittler's name wrong, and I have, again, heard it from sources on the radio that's how they're pronouncing it. So if they're pronouncing it on local and national radio that way, and I'm saying it wrong, again, I apologize for all those people, and I apologize for myself. That's how it's been pronounced all day on different media forums. So that's what I'm going to go with for now until it's corrected. But overall, if the rates of the pitches look that good already, that's quite impressive stuff. And you've mentioned this before. Another thing that when you let it get into the lab of Matt Blake, he's able to change these guys. I don't know what it is, but year after year, them paying the amount of money they paid to get him out of Vanderbilt, to get him to the Yankees, seems more and more worth it, because he has taken more and more guys that are, quite frankly, nobodies, and turned them into, with one pitch, an elite level pitcher. So you've seen it. You've seen it with Clay Holmes. You've seen it with plenty of these guys. I'm just wondering if he was able to do that with Sean Boyle and Cam Schlittler, because it looks like with their whiff rates and their spin rates, he could be making a monster here, Matt Blake.
Yeah. If that is how the last name is pronounced, why wouldn't his parents change it?
It's not
because that's just, there's a lot of problems there. There's a lot of problems there.
I'm very excited to hear it on between.
It sounds like, because it sounds like you're being fresh.
Yeah,
so,
and between the names between the mistakes that we get with Jazz Chisholm's name already on the roster, we could have a year of doozies when it comes to the Yankees and their broadcasting crew.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. All right, coming up next, Anthony Rizzo still wants to play, but does anyone want him?
Stacey, I think we were all waiting to hear from Anthony Rizzo this offseason, and he really hasn't spoken publicly, hasn't put anything on social media. No one really knew what was going on. whether he wanted to play. He hadn't officially announced his retirement. So we really didn't know. And we got an answer. Ken Rosenthal put out an Athletic article where he got an exclusive with Anthony Rizzo. And I'm not going to lie, for a guy that I think is really liked around the league, Anthony Rizzo doesn't come off sounding too great right here. I don't know about you, but the quotes that he gave and the explanations that he gave don't sound too great right here.
He just wants to play baseball. I mean, he does. He's been playing baseball since he's a kid. And, he's had an awful hand dealt to him the last couple of seasons because of that one injury that affected him for or a season and a half. And he just wants to, I could see that he wants to finish his career on a higher note than being remembered for not covering first base and helping the Yankees completely collapse in the 5th game of the World Series. Like, you don't want that to be your last moment as a Yankee. So I understand why he wants to play, but it's not just him. There are a bunch of guys who haven't been signed yet, and I'm not shocked that he's not signed by anyone, because there were guys who you thought were going to be signed right away and it took them a while to get signed. Like, I thought Pete Alonso was going to have a better market than he did. And then the Mets were like, hey, come back. And it was, how late into the offseason did that happen? And, so this isn't really surprising to me that he couldn't get anyone to bite. But yes, some of the quotes here are a little dicey.
Yeah, so Anthony Rizzo, apparently from all the reports, he's been offered a few deals, actually, but for the veteran minimum, which is $760,000. And Anthony Rizzo apparently stated that as, quote, unacceptable. Not a great quote coming off to be saying that about a contract you're offered. Again, it's not, you can't blame, we know what Anthony Rizzo was as a player, obviously. Really one of the top first basemen in the league, an MVP type candidate player, all those kind of things, and had a great career. But he's not that player anymore. He's in his 30s and he's coming off 2 really bad seasons that were injury plagued. So I can't blame a team for offering him the veterans minimum. I can't. I know he wants more, and I know he's expecting more, and he thinks his value is higher, but he's coming off 2 awful seasons where he wasn't able to really even be on the field for the Yankees. So how could you blame another team for not having the faith that he's going to come through?
Is that worse or similar to Marcus Stroman saying, I'm a starter, I'm not going in the bullpen?
I think it's worse, because at least Marcus Stroman's going to be out there, and there is value for him out there. Like, Anthony Rizzo doesn't have a job right now. A quote that seemed tone deaf to me, though, is the explanation that he goes into, where Anthony Rizzo told Ken Rosenthal that he doesn't want to take less money because he doesn't want to, quote, ruin the market for the next guy. Stacey, that's a quote that a 28-year-old first baseman, Vlad Guerrero Jr. gives that quote, right? When he's about to sign a multi-$100 million contract, and he doesn't want to take less because he doesn't want to ruin it for the next first baseman that's coming up behind him. That makes sense. Anthony Rizzo is not resetting the market. He's not resetting the first base market. I don't understand where this level of ego comes from out of Anthony Rizzo. And again, well-respected player around the league, certainly on this podcast, not at all saying anything negative about Anthony Rizzo, but he wasn't going to reset the market regardless of what he got. Anyway, is he going to reset the market for aging players who haven't played in over 100 games in the last 2 years and don't have any power anymore? Maybe. But that is the rate for those kind of players. Veteran minimum. You want to keep playing, there you go. Maybe he thought he was getting more of a Carlos Santana type deal, but at least Carlos Santana's on the field and productive still. Anthony Rizzo's not over the last 2 years, and maybe he can come back and be productive. I'm not saying he can't.
Right.
But Stacey, evidence shows over the last 2 years, and again, I'd like to see Anthony Rizzo still in the league, but give me the reason why a competitive team right now would go out and give him a deal that's anything over $1 million a year.
Right. I wonder which teams gave him those offers.
Well, he did cite in the article, too, that he wants to play for a winner. He wants to have a chance at winning. So more than likely, it's teams like the Rockies and the Pirates, so they could say, hey, look, we signed someone.
Right.
That's what it feels like. But I don't know, Stacey. I look at it and I don't love these comments out of Anthony Rizzo. I get it. I know he wants to win. I know he wants to play. But that's the market for you right now. And if you want more, what is he, 36 years old, I believe? if you want more, Stacey, like, go out there this year, play in 150 games, show some good defense, show that you've resurged yourself and had a really productive offseason, hit 15 homers and 60 RBIs. Someone will bring you in for $9 million next year. Someone will give you a contract as an older first baseman, as a veteran presence in the clubhouse, no doubt. But coming off the 2 years that he came off, again, the injury stinks, flat out, simple. No one's saying that, but you can't expect an organization to go out there and give him a contract based on the player that he can be or was.
Right.
They're not going to do that. I can't blame these teams. The quote that he gave was, "I want to play and I want to win. I love talking the game with pitchers, with hitters. There's so much to dive into. Everything that goes into it, on the field, off the field. I'll still be talking about it with the guys. We'll just see if I continue playing." Again, said if this is the way that his career ends, but I can't sit here and blame the rest of the league for not giving him a deal.
Right. Someone had joked about, that there's that theory that some people have that the Cubs winning the World Series in 2016 kind of set the world off into a weird timeline. And
Really,
I saw someone say that it wasn't just the world, because when you think of guys who played on that team and what's happened to them since,
what a fantastic point.
There seems to be some sort of Cubs curse that happened from them. Like, there was always the Billy Goat curse from 1908, but now it feels like there's a curse on almost everyone who played for that team. Like, think about Chris Bryant, think about Anthony Rizzo, think about other guys who played on that team.
That is Kyle Hendricks. I mean, that is a fantastic point.
Yeah.
Almost every player on that team has not remotely been the same guy.
Yeah. The only ones, I guess Aroldis Chapman's still around, so he's fine, but he was really only there for...
he continued to be elite with the Yankees when he went back to them.
Yeah.
Kyle Schwarber's still a productive player, but he wasn't really on that team. He had the ACL injury. He played in the World Series, but he had the ACL injury.
Yeah.
That is, wow, that's a really good point.
I can't remember who said it. Someone said it on Blue Sky, and I was like, wow.
Them winning the World Series, and then we had, like, the pandemic and stuff. Them winning the World Series really threw the world into a tailspin. Wow.
That we're still in.
Yeah. Jeez. That is a crazy... You could write a movie like that. That is a great point.
Yeah. If you guys are on Instagram, and I think probably on TikTok, they mic'd up Anthony Volpe doing defensive drills, and him and Jazz were hanging out, and because they're working together, obviously, because they're going to be double play partners. And so look for that. The Yankees are doing a lot of cool things on social media. I'm not sure when the second episode of Weave's World is going to come out, but I'm assuming it'll be soon if it hasn't happened yet, because I haven't checked the Instagram account in a few hours. But if you don't follow them on Instagram, you should. And I know there are people, party poopers, in the comments who are like, they should be paying more attention to important. It's spring training, okay?
Stop.
And let's have fun. This is what social media is about. They're stopping guys as they're walking into the stadium to ask them silly questions, like, what's your favorite Girl Scout cookie? They had them putt on a putting green, and Luke Weaver walked the ball up to the hole where he was literally like a foot away from the hole, and he still missed it. You
gotta let these guys. You gotta show these guys personalities off. To the constant complaint for years was the fact that, there's no personality in baseball. They're bored. Now that they're allowing it, people are complaining about that. Sometimes you just can't win. You
can't win. No. Well, you can, but not 162 times in a year. But
no, it's tough.
It's tough. Done. Yeah. So thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen today. For your second listen, you can find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings you a daily blend of humor and baseball, and he keeps you updated on every rumor and story throughout the season. You can find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. So that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Yankees. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias.
And I'm Brian McKeon. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.